Hello guys, this is the lecture 2 of periodic table. If you haven't checked the first lecture, please make sure that you check it. I will provide the link in the description. So we'll start off with the nomenclature of elements whose atomic numbers are more than 100. So firstly we'll have to learn some prefixes related to the numbers. So for 0 it is nil. These are pretty easy to remember. For 1 it is un, for 2 it is bi, for 3 it is tri, for 4 it is quad, for 5 it is pent, and for 6 it is hex, for 7 it is set, then there is hect for 8, and ENN for 9. This is the only one which you might have problems learning. So as I said before, that these prefixes are very important to learn. Now I'm going to show you how to use them. For example, wait a second. For example, if you have got the number 101, let's start with this. So firstly we'll write the corresponding prefix over here. So for 1 it will be un, then it's nil because there is a 0 over here, so un nil, and again 1, so it is unilium, unilium. See, so in the last, as the suffix, you will have to add ium everywhere. Okay, you got that right? Now we'll take another example. For example, 146. Okay, it will be un, quad, hex, ium. Right, this is pretty easy stuff to do, right? Just remember that you'll have to put the suffix ium in every case. Let's take a number ending with 9. This one will be un, pent, n, ium. These numbers might be hard to pronounce, but this is a very good way to remember them. This is the IUPAC name that we are naming them. So it will be un, pent, and ium. Okay, you got this right? Now we'll have a look at the different blocks in the periodic table. So, as we all know, you guys might have heard from somewhere that there are 4 types of elements in the periodic table: S block, P block, D block, and F block. Okay. So first we'll draw the periodic table as fast as possible. It will be H. I'll make a video on how to memorize the elements of periodic table as well. Okay, so now we'll start it horizontally. So after Ca there is so it will be scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc. Okay, and then there will be yttrium, zirconium, okay, we left one over here. Hafnium will come over here, sorry. Yes, so we are done with the periodic table. Now we'll firstly start with the S block elements. This thing is pretty basic to understand, that the elements whose last electron or the valence electron lies in the s orbital, you can refer to them as the S block elements. So all the elements in group 1 and 2 are your S block elements, because they have the general electronic configuration as S and S, and depending on the period they lie in, and S ranging from 1 to 2. So all these elements will have one electron in their S orbital, whereas these will have 2 electrons. Okay, so this will be the general electronic configuration of them. Now we'll look at the number of S block elements. So as you can see, there are 12. If we don't count hydrogen, over here. There are 12 elements who belong to S block. Okay, just note this down. In all these elements, francium and radon are radioactive. 87 and 88. Okay, and the only liquid elements that belong to this group are cesium and francium. Just remember these two exceptions. These are liquid elements, and these are radioactive. Now we come to the P block elements. P block elements are the elements which have their valence electrons in their p orbital. So they generally have a electronic configuration which is in the pattern NS2, which is they already contain the S orbital is already filled, and that makes sense, right? Because they'll have to fill the S orbital first, so that the electrons enter the p orbital, and then there is n p 1 to 6. So from here, as you can see, these are S1, this is S1, this is S2, and from here on it will start with 2p1, 2p2, 2p3. So all these elements on the right of transition metals, which transition metals you might be knowing, all the metals which lie between lie in the group 3 to 12. So all these are the p block elements, and the group ranges from 13 to 18. I'll also tell you a trick which you can use to remember the corresponding group if they have asked a atomic number or something and you have to answer in which group they lie in or the period. Now let's start with the d orbital one, d block elements. So d block elements are the elements, of course you guys would have guessed it, they are the elements which have their last electrons in the d orbital. So you remember in the last lecture I said that the d orbitals cannot be there in the elements having atomic number of 18 till there, because 3d has a comparatively more energy level than the 2p orbital. So you can see the result over here. They all start in the fourth period, right? You can see the result over here. We did the electronic configuration of zinc also. So it is after 4s2 that all the d orbitals start and all the electrons start filling in them. So here we can clearly say that the transition metals are the d block elements. Okay, and they have a general formula like this. I'll show you. There are a few exceptions, that's why S can vary from 1 to 2. NS2 it is, and then there is P6. This is of the, what do you say? This is of the before orbit, and then there is, this is n-1. Sorry, we won't go in that manner. We'll simply write it as NS2 and 3 n-1 d1 to 10. However, if the limit is reached of the d orbital, as you can see there are 10 elements each for 1 electron over here. So as the limit is reached, the electrons further start entering into the p orbital, and then if they start entering in the p orbital, they come in the p block elements. It totally makes sense over here, right? P block elements. I'll erase it first. And there is an exception over here. Among all the d block elements, only mercury is the liquid element. Okay, and all these elements are metals. I'll drop it. Now there are some exceptions you will have to remember, like how many gaseous elements are there and then how many liquids are there. So in the P block there are 9 gaseous elements, and they are So first of all, we'll write the noble gases only. So it will be neon, argon, krypton, xenon, radon. Okay, and then we'll come to so 4 are left, right? Yeah, 4 are left. So the remaining 4 are F2, Cl2, O2, N2. Okay, these are pretty easy to remember, right? Because you can automatically say that noble gases already exist in the gaseous form, and we can relate to these as well. Oxygen we know, nitrogen we know, fluorine and chlorine we already know. Chlorine has got a pungent smell, you can remember from that. The only gas you'll have to remember is F2, right? So the second thing is the metals which are liquid, okay, in the liquid form. 2 metals are there. One is gallium and one is cesium. Okay, these 2 metals are in liquid form. Hg is also there, I already mentioned that. Okay, so we are done with the block elements over here. No, we are left with the F block elements. So the F block elements are nothing but the elements which lie in the actinide and lanthanide series. So you'll have to draw the periodic table again. I won't draw the complete table. Just a second. So in the period 6, in which we have cesium, these are S block elements, and there is La, lanthanide, and there is HF, then Ta, W, Re, OS, IR, ET, AU, H. Okay, I won't be able to fit all of them. So these are your D block elements. But so many people would have seen an asterisk mark over here. What does this denote now? So this is nothing but the lanthanide series. Now lanthanide series consists of 14 elements, and these are also known as rare earth elements. So these are placed together because they have nearly the same properties. These have nearly the same atomic radius because the Z effective charge isn't that much. However, in small quantities, it decreases. In small quantities, the atomic radius decreases from left to right. We'll study this in atomic radii part. So for now, we must know that all these elements is, so La is the first series, or in La there is cerium first. So lanthanide series. So it's from cerium to lutetium. So you can say the cerium is the first element in which electrons are entered in the F subshell till now, because their energy is quite high, so they got the chance really late. Secondly, there is in period 7 there is francium, radium, and then we have actinide, and after this we don't write because it's all the elements above 100. You can just name it in the way I taught you at the start of the class. So for actinide series, it starts from thorium, marble thor, of course, Thorium to lawrencium. Okay, just remember these, and also remember the atomic number respectively. So for it is 57 for lanthanide, and it was 89 for actinide. So the lanthanide series ranges from 58 to 71, and this ranges from 90 to 103. So the next element will have the atomic number as over here it will be 72, 73, 74, 25. That's so in a way you can say that this period is accommodating 32 elements. 14 from here and 18 from 18 normally it does. Okay. So you can say that all the F block elements lie in group 3. But not all elements in group 3 are F block elements. Only the ones in period 6 and 7. Okay, just remember these atomic numbers, these are very crucial in your exams. Okay. So and these are, and the reason for which they are placed together, or they have a respective series of their own, it is because they have nearly similar properties. Their atomic radius doesn't decrease that much. It does if you put in all the 14 elements and compare the first and the last one. Of course it does, but not that much. You can say there is a reason behind that also. And then also remember that lanthanide series are also, it's also known as the rare earth element series, rare earth. And for actinide it's radioactive elements. And there is no need to learn the names of the 14 elements in each series. Okay, that is completely okay if you don't. Now we'll have a look at the types of elements in the periodic table. Now we come to the types of elements. So the first category is inert gases. As the name says, it consists of the elements which have their the s and the p orbitals of the outermost shell completely filled, and these come in the group 18. So these have an general electronic configuration of ns2 and np6 to make them completely stable, so that they are electronically stable by octet rule. And for helium, for specifically helium, it is ns2. Okay, only for helium. Now a few examples I'll give: neon, argon, then krypton, radon. Okay, these are very easy to understand. Now we'll have a look at the transition elements. The transition elements are elements or the metals which lie in the group 3, between the group 3 and 12. Not between, you can say also in 3 and 12. And they have partly filled d orbitals in neutral state or in stable oxidation state. But however, there is an exception over here. Zn, cadmium and mercury are not d block elements, but they are d block elements, but they are not transition elements, because these have electronic configuration of D10, so they are completely filled. Yeah, so they become, you can say, partly neutral. That's why you can say all D block elements are transition elements except zinc, cadmium and mercury. Now this was atomic number 30. Okay, you can remember from that. These are completely filled. These have their last shell configuration as D10, 3D10 to be specific, 4D10 over here and 5D10 over here. Okay, so these are not the transition elements. There is an exception, even though they lie in the group 12. Okay, now we come to the most common ones: metals, non-metals and metalloids. Now metals, also known as alkyne metals. Wait, and the metals. Now the most reactive metals come in the first group and the second group, who are also the S block elements. So they have their electronic configuration as S1 or 2. Okay, ranging from 1 to 2. The first group elements are known as alkyne metals. And second group they are known as alkaline earth metals. So we have got some properties we have to discuss. Metals are generally solid in nature, but there are few exceptions, like mercury. It's liquid at room temperature, Hg for 10. Draw thermometer. Okay, Hg for temp. And then high melting point and boiling point. They usually have a high melting point and boiling point, but there are exceptions over here as well. As this is chemistry, there is exceptions also. So cesium and gallium, here we go, Ga and Cs, Garena and CSO. A trick to remember: they have low BP and MP. Okay, now we'll have a look at how good they are conductor of heat and electricity. Usually all are a good conductor of heat and electricity, and there's no need to learn the exceptions over here. They are malleable. That means they can be flattened into thin sheets. They are malleable usually. And ductile, which means that they can be broken down into sheets and drawn into wires. Now, properties of non-metals. The non-metals are placed on the top right hand of the periodic table. As we move horizontally along a period, the properties of elements changes from metallic to non-metallic. We all know this, right? We have studied this in 10th or 9th grade. So these are also usually solid or gaseous at room temperature. They now non-metals. There's an exception over here. Now let's come to the boiling point and the melting point. They have a low boiling point and melting point. Okay, usually, but the exception here says that boron and carbon, B and C, because okay, you can term that in any other acronym as well. So this only has high BP and HP. No, what is HP? Lower MP. Okay. Now, most non-metals are brittle and neither malleable nor ductile. Okay, this is easy, right? Now we are going to talk about magic numbers. Now people would be excited what are magic numbers and all, but it is just the reality of how you thought quantum numbers will be. These numbers are very basic, you can say. So to find the atomic number of the last element in each period, you can simply use these magic numbers. So firstly, there is 2. Okay, this is the last elements of a period we are talking about. For period 1, it's He, having the atomic number as 2. Then there is neon, having as 10. Then there is argon. Okay, there is argon, 18. We all know that. Then there is krypton, which doesn't have it as 26, but it's 36. Okay. Then there is xenon, which also 54. 6th, the period in which the lanthanide series come into play. The 6th one is, wait, I did something wrong over here. So it's krypton, argon, krypton, xenon. No, it's all correct. Then there is radon. It has it as 86. And then it goes further. There is OG, which you don't have to remember, okay? So it will be OG is nothing but 188, 118, and it can be depicted by UUH. Okay, simply forget this OG. So as you can say, that in the first 2 transitions we are adding 8. Wait, I use a different color. 8, right? Then you will observe that from 18 to 36 we have added 18, and then again from 36 to 54 we have again added 18. However, due to lanthanide series now, we know that the period 5 can accommodate more, period 6 can accommodate more number of elements, so the effective difference of atomic numbers will of course change. So it will, now this changes from 54 to 36 because of lanthanides coming into play. And then there is again 36 because of actinides. We discussed before that these actually occupy all the spaces. You can say 14 spaces, extra spaces. So it always becomes 14 plus 18, which is equals to 36. Okay. Wait. 14 plus, yeah. No, it should be 32. I'm so sorry, guys. It should be 32. I was doing the calculation and it should be 14 plus 18 equals to 32. And here also you can see the difference is 32. So you completely understood the logic behind this, right? Because of the lanthanides and the actinides, there are 14 extra elements. And you can say that the 6th and the 7th period are the longest ones because of lanthanides and actinides. And H then the first period is the shortest, then the period 2 is shorter, period 3 is shorter again because they can only accommodate 8 elements, and from period 4 it starts the D block elements also start coming into play, so it becomes long. So first period is shortest, this is shorter, here the superlative degree is used here, so don't assume that if I use shortest over here, shorter means that this is even shorter, right? So shorter, then there is long, 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 and these two will be the longest. Okay. Now comes the very interesting part. Now, if you say someone has given you an electronic configuration, or let's say an atomic number, and they'll tell you to find the period number as well as the group number or the block number. So no, the block number is different. So there are few tricks that we use to find the group number and the block number and all. So firstly, if we look, firstly we'll do, take the table only. So block, okay, just note this table down, it's very important. S, P, D, F. And guys, I forgot to tell you the general electronic configuration of all the F block elements. It is n-2 F1 to 14 because of the energy level issue, you know. So the F block, the F orbital having less of the coefficient will enter, and then there will be n-1 D. You remember we did that table. In each period we have assigned which block elements will come and what will be their respective coefficient. Okay, so just refer to that once. This will be 0 to 1 over here, surprisingly. This will be 0 to 1 over here because there are many changes, there are many what do you say, exceptions in the F block elements. So in the actinide or the lanthanide series also you may encounter them, but for now we are not going to find the electronic configuration of some F block element or something. They'll automatically give us the electronic configuration, and if you spot the F over here and it's not completely filled, so you can say that it lies in the F block elements category. However, if it's filled and there are electrons in D also, and then there are in P also, so yeah, I will tell you. Wait, I'll just draw the whole table. So it's NS2. NS2 is constant over here, everywhere, right? Now, for period number, if you want to find the period number over here, so if you say that an element is given and you have the electronic configuration of the block, of course you need the electronic configuration as well. So the period number for S of block elements can be found by the value of n. Okay, So here also it's the value of n or the highest principal number here. So in this case you won't take n minus 2, you will always take n. Okay, so period number is very easy to find. The thing where everyone suffers it, the place where everyone suffers is group number. The group number for S orbital, how will you find? It's pretty basic. For an S block element, it will be either in the first group or the second, and you can easily determine that by how many electrons the S orbital is carrying. So if it's 1, the number of electrons in the S orbital, then it belongs to group 1, and if it's 2, then it belongs to group 2. Okay, this was pretty basic, I think. Now for the P1. It is, so guys, to find the group number of P block elements, we simply use the trick in which we have to only add 12 to the number of electrons in the P subshell. Now the logic behind this is, if you see the P subshell starts filling after group 12. So you can say that if there is one electron in P subshell, it will be an element of group 13, because till group 12 there will be no electron in it. And as soon as it starts filling, you can say it's starting from group 13 until it reaches group 18, it's completely filled. So if as I told you before, for noble gas elements, their general electronic configuration is ns2 np6. Now it can have 3d in between also, it can have 4f in between also, but the two things that will remain constant in a noble gas electronic configuration is ns2 and np6. So and we have also discussed that these lie in group 18, so you can just relate to it that it will be 12 plus 6, that will make it 18. Now to find the group number of D block elements. Now to find the group number of D block elements, it's simply 2 plus number of electrons in D subshell. It has got the same logic as it had in the P1, because the D subshell starts filling after group 2, right? So you can say that we can use this formula in this. Now there is one interesting thing. You might be thinking that F will be very hard to do, but all the F block elements lie in group 3. We saw in the periodic table, they all lie in the group 3. So this makes our job really easier here. Now we are going to do some examples also. And here the magic numbers also come into play. They are very crucial over here. Okay, for example, if you have been given an element having atomic number, then you have to find the block, then the group, and the period number. So now we'll take the help of the magic numbers. What were our magic numbers? They were 2, 8 plus 8, 6, 2 plus 8, 10, 10 plus 8, 18, 18 plus 18, 36, 36 plus 18, 54, 54 plus 32, 86, then 118. So here we will find the closest number. So this is 36. So you can say that this lies in the fourth period, because in the fourth period the elements are from 19 to 36, right? You can easily relate to that. So it will be period 4. And when it comes to the group, okay, so it will be simply, you can say 36 minus 32. So it is 4 groups away from the noble group, that is 18. So you can say the group will be 18 minus 4. 18 minus 4, that is 14. Okay, and the block is quite obvious, it lies in group 14, so it will be 3. Now we'll take some hard examples. Because of lanthanide ones, it becomes really hard for us. 95. So which is the closest one? It's 86. Now we all know that lanthanides are from 90, or you can say 89. No, it's from 90 only. You will term it as 90. 90 to 103. Okay. 89 is lanthanide in the table, which represents the elements. So here we can see that this lies between this. This is actinide, sorry, not lanthanide. So you can say that it lies in the actinide series. So as I told you, the group will remain as 3. Period will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. F block simply. If the element is in lanthanide or if it's a part of a lanthanide or actinide series, you will compulsorily put it into F block, and the group will remain as 3, but the period may range from 6 to 7. Okay, so here it will be 7. Now we'll look at let's say 47. Okay, let's go with 47. Okay, can you guys do it before me? I'll give you 2 minutes to solve this. Okay, you can just pause the video and then start it again when you are done. So you can see the magic number, closest magic number over here is 54 or 36, both you can take. So in the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth one, in the fifth period, it ranges from 37 to 54, right? So you can just take it as 37 will be the first group. So 37 plus 10 we need to make it 47. So this will be the 10th group. Now the period we know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 period. Now block group 10, which block does it belong to? Pretty easy to understand. So this will be, there's the red one, D block. And can someone tell me which block it will be corresponding to the coefficient of D? What will be the electronic configuration of it? So can we say here the electronic configuration will be see, here there is helium, neon, argon, krypton. Okay, so the electronic configuration over here will be krypton. We can just write it like this, the electronic configuration, and then we can start with the other forms. So krypton, which is 36. Okay. Yeah, so then it will be which group are we dealing with? 1, 2, 3, 5s2. Okay, then there will be 4d, and which group? 10. So it will be 4d8. This will be the electronic configuration of the element having atomic number as 47. Okay, this is pretty basic to understand, right? Now can someone tell me what will be the 47th element? It is silver. There's a trick to remember this now, and they won't ask you as well. You'll have to draw the whole table. And I'll dedicate a complete video in which I will tell you how you can complete the table in 3 minutes, within 3 minutes. Well, I'll try to do it in 2 minutes. There are a few acronyms you can do. So we studied about the block elements, the nomenclature of elements above having atomic number above 100, and then we also discussed how you can place them into groups, periods and blocks. Now in the next class we are going to study the periodic properties in the periodic table, which are the atomic radius, ionization potential, and then electron affinity, then electronegativity. We'll discuss that in a very detailed manner. Now that is going to be very important because many questions in JEE mains or advanced come from that part only. Okay, so we are going to do that in lecture 3. Lecture 3 is going to be a long lecture. Okay, so I hope you guys first cover all the things that I've taught in lecture 1 and 2, so that you can relate to things which I discuss in lecture 3.